But yeah, I guess my sort of big picture thesis here, which I would like to hear your response to, is that players, I don't know, let's say 20 through 60, are not doing really that well. You know, they're doing okay, but there's a couple of exceptions, and maybe we should get right to the good news, and because it's one of them, and that's Johnny Cardoso could get his La Liga debut Saturday for Real Betis at home in Sevilla. And I would say he and Malik Tillman are probably the big upward movers of 2023 in the player pool.
I'll be a little bit
after
more.
that,
I'm a little more reluctant than you, I think, on Johnny, just because I just haven't seen it yet. Like, again, the guy remains like an enigma of what he will actually add. He's not been like a catastrophe in any video that I've watched of him since like Olympic qualifying,
right?
Which was a lifetime ago. But he hasn't done it. He still hasn't done a ton of things where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. Whereas Malik, I feel like has sort of taken that step, and even though we haven't seen a ton of it for the national team, and I'm excited to see more, it does feel like we're like, okay, yeah. I think I've already converted Malik in my mind to a Copa America lock for our roster. Like, he's going to be on the Copa America team. Whereas, like, fair. I don't know that. I don't get, depending on like player health and return from injuries, like I still don't know if Johnny Cardoso will be. I hope he is. I hope he comes into Betis and just like comes out flying and displaces their incumbents and becomes a nailed on starter, kind of in the way Luca de la Torre has in La Liga. And then it will still be a question of like, will both of those guys fit in a 23-man roster? If we can't do 26 players, like, do both of those guys get in? And if not, then we're looking at dropping a La Liga player, kind of a thing. So, but no, it's been nice to see Johnny make his run through Copa Libertadores, and then it's been awesome to see that he's getting his move to La Liga. And I just, I still don't have him on the same level as Malik. He's somewhere between, as far as 2023 breakouts go, between Malik and Christopher Lund and Leonard Maloney. Like, we have, because all of those guys have gone through. I mean, those last two guys went from total obscurity into like they're just being in camp now.
Oh, I remember the early days of Leonard Maloney. Not total obscurity for me.
The Dortmund substitute appearances.
Yeah, right. Where was he before that? I forget. But in the sense that Real Betis is a legitimate La Liga club, he was, he's brought in. It's official. He played pretty well against Ghana. I thought he was pretty good against Ghana. Not the toughest game. But yeah, but Luca, it's good you mentioned Luca because the sort of ambivalence of his spot in the national team, like the uncertainty there. He's going to be in most camps, but he never really has locked anything down for himself with the national team. That is a kind of a cautionary tale as we project forward with Cardoso, because maybe 3 or 4 years ago we would say if somebody can start in La Liga in the midfield or play in La Liga in the midfield, surely they're good enough for our national team. Maybe that's not quite as true as it used to be,
Yeah, and again, if De La Torre is setting the floor for us, and that's the bar you have to clear, even if it's clearable for someone like Johnny Cardoso in the next like short term of weeks. That still says something about where we are now compared to where we were.
Yeah. Now after Johnny, there's a lot of things moving down in that group of players. Nothing really super exciting, I would say. Well, I guess I'm pretty excited about Vasquez to Monterrey. That's a cool thing. I still have a soft spot for that team after the Jonathan Gonzalez experience. Really, my first intensive video editing run. Clipping those games. Big stadium, big fan base, beautiful mountains in the background. But so that's official. You have any thoughts on it?
So not really. I know, the narrative kind of went predictably for Vasquez because he didn't go to Europe, and so that says something about whether he was good enough to go to Europe. And again, aside from the fact that Europe isn't some monolith, and that going to play for Eupen in Belgium is different than going to play for Borussia Dortmund in Germany. I feel like we kind of probably should already know that Brandon Vasquez, it wasn't going to go in and start playing for Bayern Munich in Champions League knockout matches. Like if he were that good, we would already know he was that good. And we know he's not. So he's a fringe player for the national team. He may never get into the picture. He might not have gotten into the picture even if he had moved to a championship team. We've got several championship strikers already who might not all break into the national team. Like that's just where we are with these players who are at about the level that Brandon Vasquez is. They're not demanding a call up, and there are so many of them that any one of them could definitely go the rest of their career without ever playing for the national team again. So for me, like he was right on the outer edge of the fringes, and regardless of where he moved, was probably going to remain on the outer edge of the fringes.
Yeah, that's true. And the other list, the list of other guys, like you said, Haji Wright, Daryl Dike's back to health, Josh Sargent's back to health, and then you've got Ricardo Pepi and Fuller and Balogun as kind of the incumbents at the moment. So
you got
some of those guys
Peacock.
aren't going to play. Yeah,
Peacock as a starter in the Bundesliga again.
Duncan McGuire.
Jesus Ferreira will start playing soccer again in March. Do they start in March? They might start in February. MLS starts early this year, which matters because if any of those guys want to try to sneak onto the Copa roster, like in my head, the season starts mid-March or whatever. And I was like, oh, there's just no way that we would bring any of these guys who are like even, who are very fringy straight from their off season to Copa when we have plenty of options now at or above those levels who are going to be in mid-season form. But I think they do start early, so it does kind of maybe change that math a little bit.